Morning, guys. How we doing? How we doing this morning? Papa Doodle. Rick, good morning. How we doing, guys? All right, let's start to get a few people to show up. I haven't quite decided what I was thinking about working some more of that obsidian today, but last night I couldn't sleep and got to pecking around on this and kind of thinking I want to finish it some more, but just depends. If Kenosha Kinku, if they come in here, I'll probably work some of that obsidian. That was some material they sent me, so. I'm thinking I'm going to make a fulsome out of this. If I can keep everything going the way it is, it should make a nice one, or at least give me a chance to make a nice one. A little disorganized this morning. Like I said, didn't sleep real well last night. So, see if I can get in the groove here and get warmed up a little. Candy, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. So find that smaller one. There it is. Jackson Woodworks, thank you for the gift. That is just one. Here we go. Had to take some pretty aggressive flicks. That was kind of starting to step out a little bit there on the edge. It was crushing back and had to take some pretty aggressive flakes. All I'm doing here is kind of turning this angle. You see how that's dropping down towards the bottom face. I think that's probably the first side that I'm going to attempt to flute. So I'm going to go ahead and set that angle for the fluting platform to the face that I'm favoring to be the one that's going to be the best one for the long flute. So we're wanting to build some convexity here, the same as we do when we're trying to make from the side, from this way. The concept works the same. If it's flat or concave, then the flute flake won't travel the length of the piece. So you're trying to build in a natural curve for it to want to go this way. That's what I see a lot of people when they're trying to learn how to flute pieces. the base, the area is just, it's too flat and there's no convexity from side to side. You know, there's no ridge there. But then they also don't have convexity from the base to the tip. And that causes that flute to want to either go short and head into the mass of the piece or go out here and roll out. I took a few downward flakes on that, but you can see how that's now got, see that curve where that gradually comes in at the base? That's what we're looking for. We're looking for, so that flake kind of comes in and travels at a curve just like it does over the piece from side to side. I'm telling you, Kill Creek, I was wanting to keep hitting the snooze button this morning. I was a little tired. I usually don't sleep as well, after doing a live like that later. But then, also my wife is traveling. So this is Georgia Jasper, Daniel. It's kind of, and that's the only information I have on it. I got it from a friend of mine from that area. He picking this up in the similar area as Flint River material. So I think it'll make a really, really cool Folsom if I can keep everything working the way I want it to. Now once I've determined which side I'm going to flute first, and I'll show you the reason why I'm picking this side. You see how see that curve? There's just one little kind of a flatter spot right in here, and that's towards the tip. But we're going to be building convexity. This is going to be a dart point, like a atlatl dart point. That's all. The Folsom culture didn't use bows and arrows. They used hand-thrown spear or atlatl dart, Kill Creek. So what I'm trying to do is get convexity in a smooth platform for it to, same as if we're trying to follow a ridge. I want that ridge to go to the tip. This side, I need some more contouring because you can see that there's a couple of, like a big flat spot area right here. And I'm going to have to build that in as I'm working back that direction. So we get that first flute, and then I've got all of this material to work towards building convexity on this side. IPEP or IPEP, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Yeah, Daniel, that's carpal tunnel and arthritis are both things that I suffer with, and there are some days where I got to force myself to do it. So I can feel for you there. Most mornings I'm out here trying to get my hands moving and warmed up before you guys even, before I go live, so that I'm not fumbling around here quite so bad. Yeah, that's me too. I usually go to bed fairly late and don't sleep well through the night at all. I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or what I guess that's the only thing it can be. Now these flakes that I'm taking here are fairly aggressive downward type flakes, and I'll show you in just a second. What I'm doing by taking those, you can see how kind of gives you a scalloped edge there where those, trying to show where the flakes came off better. There you go, you can see a little bit of it. That was that series of flakes right there. What that's doing is it's making a thinner edge, and you can see how now we've got this kind of a hollow ground area, and then it goes up into this mass. Well, it's almost Well, that right there is basically identical to let's see if I can find that one real quick. I've got a couple in here. This one, that one. Terry, good morning. Now you can see the flaking on the bottom side of this is a cast of an original piece, but you see the same aggressive hard downward flaking to isolate this little ridge right here. That's what I'm, get these put back over here. That's the profile that I'm trying to get here, is we're going to end up with something like that as far as thickness and the way that those flakes cut in from the sides. And this is one that was a cast of an original, you know, of an ancient artifact, and you can see that same aggressive downward flaking, and that's to the first face because this side hasn't been attempted. So that's telling me that those aggressive kind of hollow ground where I'm setting up that ridge, that's my first setup for that first side. So now I'm not quite ready to, still working on this convexity, but those flakes like that are what start getting you enough regularity of that platform to continue doing those kinds of flakes. So I'm going to just basically work this piece back and forth, side to side, as I build that type of a contour that I want. I'm going to dull this tip up just a little bit. Good morning, hon. Wife just entered the deal here. She's in Colorado visiting family. And I think forgot about the time change. Now I'm doing the same thing here as I was doing on the sides and the base, because I'm trying to build that convexity, but I want everything set to this one side. So I've got this tip now to where it's oriented towards this face. Well, so are we, hon. Me and the Princess Papadopoulos. Thank you there, painting. Yeah, that's what I like to do, is make stone tools and that kind of stuff. Can't really do it next to a fire just yet, but have done it. Yeah, me and the Princess Papadopoulos, that's our elderly pit bull. she was really confused last night and was mad at me because we were late going to bed, so. Now you'll see, I'm going to show you after this series, but each of these times that I'm taking those downward flakes towards that face, what I'm doing is, you see how the underside of that, how those edges are more curved and they're leading towards this. So this next series of flakes that I take, I'm going to take off of the opposite face, and then I'm going to bring those really aggressive flakes back towards this side, and that'll be my last series before I try to flute this side. Now I'm not trying to drive these in, and you can see this is a good example. You see how flat that bottom side of that is? How it's very little convexity, and that's because of this flat area right here. As I'm going back and forth on these sides, I'm trying to just take flakes that are going to round into this, and I'll show you after this series what it, by just working it back and forth like that, I'm not trying to send flakes way out into the middle of this on this series. All I'm trying to do is just get them to curl around that edge to start making it more lenticular. To have more convexity. All right, now the side that I just took these flakes off of, you can see now from the base, that side has got more of a, see how that kind of curls in a little bit more than the other side? This side's so steep. I'm getting ready to do the same thing, and you'll be able to see a little bit more of a ridge starting to form down this side. All right, now after running that series, you see now we've started to get a little bit more of a lens shape on this side. We'll actually have one more series going back that way. This series is going to set this face up. Now I want this really, make sure that I'm not going to have any loose flakes coming off there. These are going to be really aggressive, particularly spaced. I'm going to try to space them apart similar to what those casts that I have for the removal of the flakes, to try to get that same contour that cast, that artifact has. Norseman, I've taken deer with a stone tool of my making. I've actually taken one with an arrow that I made from a bow that I didn't, and I've taken one with a bow that I made and an arrow I didn't. So I have yet to take one with all handmade equipment, but I have hunted with them, and they are every bit as effective as, you know, modern equipment. I mean, obviously there are, you know, with primitive weapons, the, you know, 40-yard 10-ring shots that you see with modern compound type stuff, or the, you know, that type of, that's definitely not what you're looking for with this stuff. You know, realistically 25 yards. Absolutely, yeah. That's what I'm actually working. Norseman, I've got this is a video that's coming up. Now, I didn't get all of the making of it on film, on film. I'm so old school. I didn't get it recorded. But this is a Osage orange limb that had a good bend in it, and I worked all this down with stone tools. And we're going to do a video of throwing a rabbit stick, and just to kind of show the effectiveness of it. I've been watching videos and doing research. I'm getting ready to do like what they call the Balearic sling, the woven type slings. I'm going to do one of those and do some of that live, or at least record it. So yeah, we're doing a bunch of primitive hunting and survival tools is kind of the series that I'm working on. So, you know, something to keep me busy. Oh, Alex, well, just depends on, you know, I mean, I learn every day. You know, that's what I kind of stress to you guys, that this is something that I've been napping for a total of on and off for almost 30 years. 30 years this year. But there was a time frame where I didn't nap much. So I took a little bit of a break. But hey, Belinda, good morning. But for about the last 8 or 9 years, I've really, really worked hard on this craft. Well, Norseman, it just depends on what you're trying to, what you're wanting to do as far as the activity that, you know, if you're wanting to hunt and you're wanting to make a suitable, you know, like an arrow tip or something like that, just a plain little triangle point. It's very easy to make. It's easier to keep your symmetry, you know, on a triangle. It's off, you know, it's easier for you to see that as you're making it. As far as material, you know, glass will work. We did a series on trash napping here not too long ago. and I was showing some alternate materials that you can use to flint knap with. But now if you're wanting to just like general skills, if you can get to where you can take a flake off of a core rock. The basic thing is, let me see if I got a hammerstone here. A rock like this is Texas material. This is a little bit coarse and rough. You can see some of the, it's not, you know, super high grade stuff, but that flake right there, now this is not as good an example because it's got a lot of this cortex, but that's a cutting instrument right there. That's sharp. Once you're done using it, you can toss it down. So if you're looking at this from a survival skill or a primitive living skill aspect, then learning to take that first flake like that, that's really the first thing that you need to learn to do if you're looking at it from like a primitive living skills type of situation. Now, if you're wanting to hunt and that kind of stuff, just start off with small arrow points. They're simple. It doesn't take as much force to do those as it does the larger pieces. You don't waste as much material when you break them, and you're going to break them. That's one thing to keep in mind, that you know, I've been doing this, you know, again, for on and off for 30 years. See those flakes right there? Every one of these flakes that are coming off now are sharp enough to cut with. That is correct. Painting, and that's the thing. You know, it doesn't matter who in this room said what you just said, because everywhere, all around the globe, our ancestors, no matter where you're from, chipped stone tools. Each continent has, you know, particular. Tatted Park Ranger, good morning. But every culture around the world chipped stone. You know, they made stone tools by various, you know, means, but we all did it. So if you want to learn to do it, you can, because your ancestors did, or you wouldn't be here to watch this exciting live stream this morning. All right, let me get back to this thing. Now I'm going to take another series down this side. Now you can see this is the side we just took, and you can see how curved in that is as compared to this is more gradual. I'm going to try to take aggressive flakes to really make this center ridge stand out. Yahweh Guide Services. Well, I'm going for a fulsome, which, you know, the Midlands are found in sometimes archaeologically are found in association with the fulsomes. Sometimes with them and sometimes on their own, but they believe that they're basically an unfluted fulsome, and I'm actually going for a fulsome with this one. Right on, Tatted Park Ranger. That's a score, man. That is some good free practice right there. But I have made a few. I've made a few Midlands. Usually, what I do is, if I'm making what I'm intended to make a Folsom, and it gets so thin that fluting it is just ridiculous, then what? Yeah, but tatted park ranger, I mean, that's, you know, if you turn it to gravel, it was free, and it was somebody else's trash. So, and like I said, there's no downside to that. You get all kinds of free practice, and there's no stress. You didn't buy that, you know, you didn't spend money, because that's what used to bother me so much when I would buy material. Then I would beat myself up if I screwed up a piece, you know, or I think, man, I paid good money for that, and all I did was make it into a pile of flakes, you know. And that was why for years and years I didn't purchase material, because it put more pressure on me, you know. And I do this because I love to do this. I was saying hey Laura, thank you for the follow. I was saying last night on the live, you know, if this becomes a job to me, then it loses its appeal. I do this because it's my art form, you know. This is what you know, that I don't know any other way to express it. You know, like I said, it's something that I'm driven to do, but I don't want to do it like I'm a machine. Now and I said it before, Ed Mosier is on TikTok. If you've ever watched Ed, he is a phenomenal napper. The guy's like a machine, and I can't make myself go into production mode and have, hey, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it there, Pain In. But to me, if I've got an order to fill, that means I've got a boss in that somewhere, and I don't, you know, I don't want to try to create when I've got somebody breathing down my neck saying I got to have this, you know, this is what I ordered or whatever. To me, that just takes a lot of all the fun out of it. So, and kudos to the guys that can do it, because I've got some friends that are they're like machines, you know. And that's not to say, I mean, I can nap that way. I just choose not to. Brizzo, yeah, that's a time saver right there, man. You know, why spend all that time, you know, busting up rocks when you could just throw them all in at once? Took a little bit of that ear off that side. Didn't really care for that, but oh yeah, well, what do you mean? Is as far as like the parameters of the way that you're trying to make the rocks look? I don't know anything about programming and stuff. You know, game design. That's Kill Creek. That's freaking. You know, I'm amazed that someone can think of that and then have the knowledge with a computer and programming and all the stuff to be able to make what they see in their brain come to life. Yeah, I don't even know what that is, Kill Creek. But yeah, I mean, you know, and guys, that's the thing, you know. Well, like Kill Creek, designing a game, you know. To be able to create like that, to me, is no different. Whatever your creative process is, Because like I said, I wouldn't know the first place to begin doing something like that. All right, we're going to see if we can at least drive a flute. Doesn't look too terrible. But again, guys, you know, it's like I've shared with you before. If you're not having failures, you know, if you're not having things turn out the way that you don't want them, or they're not in your favor, then you're not trying, you know. I break points every, you know, well, not every day, but I do break, you know, my fair share. You're going to break them when you're first starting out learning this, and once you've learned how to do it. It's just a matter of, you got to figure out, once you do that, you know, once you break one, why did that break? You know, was that my fault? Was that the rock's fault? You know, was there a bad angle? What is it that caused that piece to break? And then try to learn from that experience. And that's the only time you fail with flint knapping, is if you're just bashing on rocks and you're breaking stuff and you have no idea why you're breaking stuff. And then you just pick up another rock and start bashing. You know, all you're doing is wasting your time and your rock resource. Let me get this up against the wall here. Not Nate Dog. I am getting ready to try to flute a Folsom point. I'm going to try to drive a flake right here. If that'll hold up. From right there to the tip of it. It's an extremely difficult point style to make. So archaeologists, you know, like I've said a bunch of times, but depending on what archaeological paper you're reading, but they'll you know, say anywhere from 40 to 60% failure rate on these pieces. So, and that's, I mean, the original peoples. Well, that looks good. See where that flake detached. Now, hopefully, it went to the tip. That's the hope all the time, but traditionally, they didn't always go that way. But this one did. You can see just shy of the tip on that. Really nice flute. You can see the channel there. Now we'll go back to the other side and see if we can get some convexity built. Do you see this flat area right through here? Thank you, Brizzo. Tatted Park Ranger, thank you. So now we're going to do the same thing we did over here to this side. We're going to work building convexity, and then set this platform back here up and do the same thing on this side. So let's set this aside. Boy, I really like the way that base looks. Now see, what I like to do then at this point, you know, when I'm showing you that this is the cast of the original. This is what, you know, now this one broke during the fluting, the first flute. So I've got a very similar contour, a little bit, I can tell the way that I ripped those flakes wasn't quite the same. So I need to keep working on the type of flakes that I'm getting off there, but I'm getting closer. You know, that's the goal. This is Georgia Jasper is all that's what I was told as from a buddy of mine that lives, well, he's living back in Georgia now, but this is picked up along the, well, it's like Knife River, or is it Knife River? Flint River material, same formation as that. He was getting this material in the same place he was picking up Flint River. And it is super, super nice stuff to work with. I'm really liking it. I wish I had a whole bunch more of it, but now on this one, like I said, you can see almost there's like these bigger removals where there's like a little dish out here. I've got to build convexity to that, or that flake will never travel past that spot. So we're gonna do a series of flakes and then reevaluate the contours there and see if we need to do another series of flakes. Yeah, as far as I know, I mean, I don't know the exact area that it came from, painting, but yeah, he's from Georgia, and the material is called Flint River. I mean, I think some other people, you know, he picks up like Georgia Coastal is another one that he talks about. But like I said, I don't have any knowledge of where exactly it came from, but other than Georgia. Yeah, we're going to have to do another series of flakes down that side, or we're not going to have enough convexity to get a flute to go through that. I'm trying to get these to go into that central area where that dish is, and that's why I'm really bearing down on these. You can see how they're really aggressive and really pulling that out, and I'm trying to get where this is my high spot and not over here. This is going into a flatter area, so I'm not going to push as hard, because those flakes, if I try to push them into that concavity, then I'll end up with a bunch of step fractures out in the center of the piece, that the only way I'll be able to get those out will be with the flute. So you don't want to create that situation. I do that painting. I do that for the dust on there, and it slightly abrades the edge, makes it to where my tool can grab a hold of the edge a little bit better. Right on, Tatted Park Ranger. Yeah, like I said, I'm not familiar with the region, and I'm not even certain that that's what it is. That's just what my buddy told me. So, but I've got some of the oh, like that, the peanut butter looking type material from him, just that really, and I think that is called, it's Flint River, and it's gorgeous stuff. Sorry guys, just dressing the tool here a little bit. Yeah, it's gorgeous stuff, Tatted Park Ranger. Like I said, really, I feel fortunate to be able to work it because it's the consistency and everything. It's just really nice. Right, right there, I'm just kind of pulling off these little low spots, little deltas. Just trying to even up that edge. And you can see after that series and kind of picking down along there, you see how we've got this little bit of a curve started? Whoop. Where it's kind of leading into those lower spots. That's what we're looking for. Good morning, kitten. Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, Tatted Park Ranger, I have gotten the opportunity to work some fantastic material just from, you know, gifts from friends and from you guys, and I get jealous every time I get to. Right on, yeah. I mean, well, painting, the only downside of that, you might not find that, but you might find another rock resource, you know. Just be careful where you collect. Make sure that you've either got permission or that it's an area where you're legally allowed to, because I know some states have some pretty strict laws about collecting lithic resources, so. Let's see, I don't know who said I don't know how you keep the flakes out. I tap them out before I, move around too much, but usually don't have any trouble with it. Yeah, and that's unfortunate, Tatted Park Ranger. And, like I said, some of these guys, some of the stuff that, oh, blue slate, that's cool, kitten. Some of these guys, they just live right in the middle of just a pile of stuff. And, I'm fortunate. I live in an area where we've got a lot of Reed Springs and Burlington resources. I mean, I'm not ever hurting for material. I've got, stuff within 30 minutes of where I live, any direction. Yeah. That's what the Army Corps. I know. That's what I'm saying, Tatted Park Ranger. You don't pick up rocks off Corps land. We've got Corps Lake here. Yeah, it really is. It's just a matter of and guys, no matter where you live, if you look at go to a local area. Museum, like an artifact museum, people with personal collections. If you look at what material the artifacts are made of in your area, then you start looking for that resource, because the people that were living there before you, they were shaping stone. It may not have been, like out there on where you guys are at on the East Coast. You get up into the Carolinas and all that, man, they were working rhyolite and basalt and some of the just absolutely toughest rock there is, but they were using it because that's what they had. So if you're fortunate enough to live in an area where you've got a nappable or easily nappable resource, then, good for you, because not everybody's got that. But everybody does have something to work. Yeah, right on. Yeah, Colorado's, you get over into Wyoming, there's a lot of the jaspers and quartzes that are agates and that kind of stuff out in there. So, yeah, there you go. Southeast Kentucky. So you would have to travel more to the west, I think, in Kentucky to get over into the Hornstone and some of the Sonora and all that stuff. But again, if you look at the stuff that the artifacts in your region are made from, then you go look for that rock resource. And that's how I find. I've told you guys before about it, but those of you on here listening, there's an app. I should probably get a promotional deal from them, but the app is called Rocked, ROCK''D. If you download that app, yeah, right on. And see, that's the thing. Yes, ROCK''D, kitten. That is exactly it. If you go download, it's a free app. And what it does is it shows you in the location you're at what the major formations are, and it gives you information about the stratification of those, the makeup of the formation. It's a really fantastic app, and it everywhere that I've gone, it's been pretty close. It gives you a starting spot, so I would suggest you looking that up. Even if you're not a flint napper, if you're a rock hound or if you do lapidary stuff, any of that kind of stuff, that would be a helpful app for sure. Thank you, Rogue Ghost. I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't finish a lot of stuff on the lives. I mean, I do some, but I'm not a production napper like some of these guys are. I mean, I can produce points. I made one last night on the live, just messing around. 15 minutes, a little over 15 minutes. But it just takes the fun out of it for me, I mean, I look at it like if I'm painting a picture or playing a song or whatever else, I'm not trying to get done with it as soon as I can. I'm enjoying the process. You can see after that series and how that just kind of started cresting into that flute, and that's the way that I'm turning that edge. So now we're going to go back this way after I run a series off this side. Yeah, I do too. Rogue Ghost. That's my. It's like a puzzle to me, and figuring out the puzzle or trying to make it become what it is that I saw in my head. It's just like a sculptor or painting. And hey, Payne, right on. If you guys, if you have to leave and you can't hang out the whole time, I'm in the process. My son's helping me out. We're uploading all of these videos to YouTube. So here before too long, this live stream will be on our YouTube channel. So it's same name, New Age Neanderthal. So go check it out if you like the content, or you want to watch what I'm doing, or you want to see some specific stuff. We're putting all of that from around the first part of February. Yep, I agree completely, Rogue Ghost. It's basically sculpting. That's what's going on. So making it what you see in your head or what you wanted it to be. And that's why typically, people ask me if I have a point style in mind when I start working a piece, and I say yes every time, because, well, thank you, Kitten, I appreciate it. There's a lot of people that, I'm trying to share something that when I was trying to learn to do this, it was like forbidden knowledge, man. They weren't going to share that because, if I share this with somebody, they'll know how to make them. Yeah, how cool is that? If you share it, they'll know how to make them. But there was this overwhelming, like it's some secret knowledge, and nobody owns it. This is all we've done is rediscover it. It's kind of like Christopher Columbus discovering America when there were already people here. I think somebody else beat you to the punch, Chris. Yeah, I hear you, Nick. Yeah, and that's, there's nothing wrong with that. And as you're working through a piece, sometimes you do have to, if you want to salvage something from it, you may have to change horses in midstream. But the way I look at it is, if a Folsom man was sitting down trying to make a Folsom point and it didn't work out and the flutes were short, he didn't go, well, I guess I'll just make a Clovis out of it. Yeah, well, some of that, Nick, is the contour. If you're trying to flute with the copper indirect, because I've seen you use that on some of them. If you've got so much energy that it's blowing that thing up, back off the pressure a little bit. And see if that works for you. Because I do think that a lot of people, they think that you just have to try to blast that off there, but you don't. It's more about the contours and about having that ridge there and the platform set up than it. Absolutely, man. And I'm not trying to, guys. I try to keep it all, Yeah. Well, and especially Rogue Ghost when you're concentrating all that force on one tiny little spot. And Nick, this will be, because I know I've seen you use like a big moose billet when you're hitting that. You think about all of that energy that you're swinging that big moose billet, every bit of that energy is concentrated and put on the very tip of that flaker that you're using. So imagine what would happen if you hit the end of that piece with the same force that you're hitting the thing that's hitting that. That's why it compounds that energy, and it really is putting too much into it, and it's got to go somewhere. And that's what I've tried to tell you guys, as far as if you hit something. Okay, like for me, if I work a lot of this Texas rough, tough material that takes a lot of force to break off a flake, or more force than other rocks, and then I start working with some obsidian or some heat treated stuff, that energy travels through quicker. And if you hit it too hard, you'll blow the rock up, because that energy is looking for a place to get out. And if you hit it and put more energy into it than it has the ability to get rid of, that's when that rock comes apart on you. And I know everybody in here has done it. I've done it. You get this really slick piece of rock, man, and you just give it a good whack, and it kind of comes apart because it was too. Yeah, well, kind of let the rock tell you. Kitten, you gotta, some different rocks, like this stuff is working like a dream, but there's no way I could work this rock the same as this rock is going to work. This is rough and tumble, hardcore Texas stuff. I have to approach them in a different way. I have to hit the Texas stuff harder to get the same result, but it's about spending time with that rock enough to understand that I don't have to hit it that hard to get it to do that. If that makes sense. I mean, like everybody in here, if you've worked obsidian, you know that it doesn't take as much force to pressure flake it as it does a piece of, well, anything else. Oh yeah, there's a lot of the feel to it, for sure, Rogue Ghost. I mean, it's, and that's where the experience and artistry comes from it. But it's just it's trying to get there. It's so hard, especially this point style has been kicking my behind for. I mean, I've been working on this for a number of years. Kitten, it's exactly like cooking. It's just like anything that you put some of yourself into that you're trying to you have to taste your food. Yeah, absolutely. Well, or as you're making something, try to taste a certain way. If I do this, it'll do this, or cooking is just as much an art form or something like that. So absolutely. All right, now we took that series of flakes. You can see how those all kind of just met up into that. They didn't really push into the flute a whole lot. This side did a little more than I wanted. But now we're going to do another series this way. And hopefully this will be our last one to set that ridge up. I've got that flat spot right there that I want to try to get out. If I don't, it's okay if the flute only goes to there, because like I said, on these Folsoms, so many people think, that's the gold standard, is having that flute go all the way to the end. But on several of the examples that I've got, even on the shorter ones, yeah, see this one right here? That flute ended on this is a cast again, but it's shy of the tip on both sides. This is Hixton quartzite, and that's where that flute ended on that side. It didn't go all the way to the tip. Here's another cast that was broken, and you can see this one only went what would have been a little over halfway on that side, and almost about a half an inch short of the tip on that side. So really all we're shooting for is to make sure that hafting area is good and thin, and that it's, it fits in our hafting system. All right. Light another incense here and get back into this. This is the part. The second flute is usually the difficult one, for me anyway, because on that first flute, that first side, you're trying to flute the one that you think can go the longest, because that it is actually going to be a longer flute, and that's always your best side to go. The second one, I'm trying to use the contours without messing up my first side to set it up to where another flute will go. So this side is much more tedious for me to get closer to right, because there's, I'm not dealing with the A side, and I'm also trying not to mess up what was my first side. So because this is going to be a pretty thin piece. If I'm able to pull off a flute on this second side of any kind of substance, that's going to be a nice piece. So see on that series, you see how that, we just took flakes down that. You see how that's kind of blended into this area better. This side here, we're going to do the same thing. It is going to be a little bit shallow right there, so I don't think the flute is going to go. Yeah, no kidding, Nomad Nick. That's, well, and if you picked it up, I mean, you understand what I was saying a while ago about the difference in material. If you're working, you know, tough raw material and you go to obsidian, you know, you're going to have a whole bunch of, Noah, thank you for the follow, I appreciate it. But you're going to have a whole bunch of extra energy in there. You know, that obsidian, it absolutely, well, that's what I was working yesterday and the day before. Nick, I don't know if you were in here. One of my followers sent me this piece of obsidian, and it's just some super, super cool stuff. There's got a seam in it over here, and I was just working through it, but we took this flake right here and made like a paleo dark point style out of it, and I'm going to try to work each piece of that I take off there into a point. So yeah, and a lot of folks really like working with the obsidian, kitten. I don't mind it so much. It is just, I refer to it a lot of times as devil glass because it is next to impossible to work it without getting cut. And I don't like wearing gloves, and I don't like using, you know, too much of that stuff. Now I wear glasses for protection and because I'm about blind, but anything that, if you're new and you're working obsidian, by all means wear you some gloves to help. If you hit it too hard and drive one of those sharp flakes, that glove's not even going to stop it though. So just be very aware of how sharp that material is. Oh yeah, I guarantee you. Roland, that you work in raw Texas stuff and then go to something that's, you know, like obsidian or heat treated, really glassy, nice material, you can definitely feel the difference in how much force it takes to get those flakes to remove, for sure. Yeah, this one I don't think is going to travel all the way to the end. We might get lucky and get it to go underneath that, but I really don't think so. I think that our flute's going to probably end somewhere 2/3 of the way if it gets that way. Maybe half to 2/3 is really what this flute is going to look like on this other side. So, which, like I said, I'm fine with because of the contours of the tip. You know, I can make, you know, use this low area to flake into on the final flaking. So it's not actually, you know, it's not about getting it to go every time to the tip. It's more about the contours that you're creating So I said this second side for me is a little bit more of a pain for setup because it's got to be, you know, closer to Tracy. Well, I'm working on a Folsom. This is a, I've got a, let's see what happened to my Clovis that I had out here. Here's a Clovis that I made out of some Texas material. You can see I've still got to do a little bit of work on the base and clean that up after that second flute, but this one here, I'm hoping for a Clovis. I'm hoping to get a flute that'll go, or a Folsom, I mean, that'll go up into about right there. Kitten, that is one of the ones that I fluted on Fluting Friday. And I finished another one. It's in my Etsy shop now. That's the second one that I finished up from those ones that we fluted. Well, Tracy, I mean, you know, it's like I said, I don't mind people inquiring about my work, but I try not to make this into an infomercial. But if you are interested in my stuff, if you go right up here and click on that and go to my profile, there's a link right there on my profile page that'll take you to my Etsy shop. If you're interested in looking at some of my stuff. I don't do this so, you know, for a living, so to speak, guys. You know, it's not, I don't ever want this to kind of degrade into a ShamWow commercial. So I appreciate the interest in my work. You know, like I said, I don't discourage somebody from wanting to own some of my, because this is my artwork, guys. This is what you know, the way I like to create. So, but I'm not going to come in here and try to push it either. But wait, there's more. If you order now, you'll get a fully fluted Clovis. But wait, there's more. Nice one, Kitten. Love it. That was awesome. This would be the sold. Yeah, I don't blame you. That was a good one, Kitten. Hey, Pappy Swag, good morning. Yeah, it chops, it dices, it does everything you need. And if you order right now, only. There it went. I had one little spot there that I wasn't liking on what's kind of shaping up to be my second fluting platform. Now, like I said, guys, this little flat spot right here in this it's gonna cause my flute to go shorter than I want. Right on, Tracy. Well, like I said, I better hurry. There's only 2 left. Yeah, if you order now in the next 5 minutes, yeah, no kidding, right? No high pressure sales here, guys. I'm not doing it for that. That's my outlet for it, but it's, you know. Yeah, no, I can't do that, Don. I'm already paying for the shipping on all my stuff. So when folks order out of my shop, I pay for the shipping and the insurance to make sure they get it. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Buy one, get the second one at full price. But no, I appreciate it, Tracy. I'm not, you know, making light of it or whatever, but there's so many people that are on here, and it's turned into a ShamWow fiesta, you know, or any of, you know, insert any of those cheesy infomercials, Ginsu's, you know, the Popeil Pocket Fisherman, whatever you want. Well, yeah, Don, I do send a case with mine too. That's what I'm saying, kitten, and I don't like that. Adam, I've been total doing this about 30 years. But about the last 8 or 9, I was injured on the job 10 years ago, and had worked my whole life, and it just was driving me crazy. I had to come up with something to take up my time and my energy. And I ran across a Marty Reuter video, flint knapping tips. And if you guys have never checked him out, man, you gotta go check him out. The guy he's one of the best I've ever seen. And I've got some video of some of the old time nappers, but Marty is just otherworldly. And when I saw him creating what, his stone tools with the tools he was using, awesome, Tracy. Yeah, that's how most of us got started, was, following grandpa or dad around. Yep, kitten. That's what happened. I grew up on a farm. I was doing farm work at 12, 13, 14 years old, doing man work on a farm, and did that right up until I tried to pull some man work in a tire shop at the county that I worked at. Well, like I said, Adam, I started about 30 years ago, and I spent almost 20 years of that, or about that. Yep, there you go, kitten. But, I messed around with it more. It's almost like somebody that plays the guitar, and they pick the guitar up once a month, or, a couple times a month, and they play the same 3 chords, and then you set the guitar down. Well, 20 years later, they play those same 3 chords the same 3 ways. And this works the same way. And when I dedicated the time to this, and I was able to, like I said, with my health, this is something that I can do, well, health permitting. You guys know I've missed a few of these where I just couldn't do it, but it's something that took up that void that I was missing. And I do deep dives into the culture of the areas, into all aspects of it. So I appreciate you guys just stopping and watching. I would be doing this if you weren't here, so thank you very much. All right, we're going to set up this second platform here. Yeah, you were making your own, but no blades allowed, huh? Yeah, I tried to grind a few of these, and like I said, there's been a few attempts over the years before I actually... The first thing that I tried to learn with was some, that like colored, what they call it, cullet glass, that they see in all the rock shops. It's got, the pretty colors. That's what I started with, was a chunk of that. And a deer antler, because in those days there was, almost no literature to be found for the average person, unless you really knew where to look. And I was just a dumb 25-year-old kid trying to figure out how they were made. And I napped for 2 or 3 years before I knew other people did it. Now most people are being introduced to this because of the popularity. After COVID and that, I think there was a big resurgence in the interest of it. So, but yeah, I've spent probably the last, I'd say 8, 9, close to 10 years, not quite, but trying to learn, J Webb, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. But it's something that if you want to spend the time to learn to do it, everybody can, because it's what I tell people. It's not a talent, it's a skill. It's something that I've taught myself to do. Well, not taught myself. I've had teachers, but I'm saying that, it's just practice time. And if you put the time in the seat, learning to do it, then it's absolutely something that you can do. That's a little bit better. I'm trying to set this up to where I can get as long of a flute out of this second side as possible, because that low spot is really going to limit that. But like I said, I'll be okay with it as long as we can get... That is absolutely correct, kitten. I've heard they'll tell you that if you spend 15 minutes a day, 12 minutes, basically the same, but 15 minutes a day truly practicing anything that you want to get better at, in 1 year's time, you will be better than 90% of the people that do that. So, you know, that should tell you just how important spending time every day, and not just whacking on a rock, but actually practicing, trying to get better. You know, when you break one, you want to stop and analyze that. Why did that break? You know, was that me? Was that the rock? Was my tool wrong? You know, and try to teach yourself from your mistakes. Well, we're about to see how lucky I can get with this. Oh, I took too much of that back side of that platform right there. I wanted to make this as fairly robust platform because I'm trying to drive it underneath that if possible. Yeah, and it may break it. You know, that is the double-edged sword of these, is you're trying to make them thin, but that thinness also dictates into likelihood of breaking a piece. So I think we're pretty close there. Sorry guys, this, like I said, this side is usually a little bit different setup. I'll show you the platform that I'm setting up here, and you can see how that's kind of in line with that ridge. That's what I'm trying to get set up. And I want it to have enough strength to be able to hold up until I can get enough energy traveling underneath that spot right there. All right. Oh, there it is. Now, when I'm wrapping this, I'm not wrapping it real tight. All I'm doing right here is just trying to get this to kind of stabilize it. I don't want it bouncing around. I want it nice and solid, but I don't want it tight. Now the one that I wrap behind here, where it's kind of on my antler block, I wrap that a little tighter because I'm not putting force down on that blade. I'm putting it where it won't move. Because I want, when I drive that flake, I want it to go right to the edge of that bone right there, or that antler, and run out of a place to break, if that makes sense. It's running to that spot. All right. Let's see here. Let's get this. Now I hit that harder than I typically would because I was trying to drive that under a thin spot. Now it remains to be seen if I hit it too hard where it folded out that tip, but we're going to find out together. Well, it stayed together, and it looks like I've got quite a bit of stuff here at the end that went all the way, so we're getting at least closer to the tip. Yeah, right where I told you guys. It hit that flat spot and that flute spread out and tried to go to the side because of that flat spot. Absolutely acceptable flute on that though. You can see the bass. But see right where that went, got flat. See that flat spot? And I told you it was going to go into that and then stop. If that had been convex all the way down here, it would have went all the way to the tip. So that's why it's so important, that convexity. I might be able to pick that one off. That flake, that I almost hit it hard enough. You can see how that flute kind of kept going right there. It's starting to trail off the side. If I would have hit that much harder, that would have folded off the side and probably broke this point in half. So, anyway. Now, on this one, I might, I hadn't thought about it, Rick, but it's pretty thin, but I think I could. I mean, I can give it a shot. I don't think it's going to travel back into it as far as I'd like. I think I'm probably just going to pressure flake this one out because, like I said, you can see in between, it's really thin. That's really all I was going for on this, on this point style, is making sure that hafting area is nice and thin, and that it'll, I could put it up into a haft easily. And this absolutely has got, all the signatures of what it's supposed to look like. Look how sharp that stuff is, guys. You see how that's stuck in the end of there? That's where that flake detached and the edge of it just stuck on that. And that's, antler or solid bone, basically. But I think, as nice as this material is, Rick, I think I can actually taper it back in there where you won't hardly even be able to see that flake stopped short. Because now, instead of just going to the middle, I can push flakes in to finish out that thinning. You'll see here in just a second. See, that was that. See how that flake kind of curled over and it left that little divot right there? That's where that flute flake ended at. And it was trying to crawl to the side of that and break the point. Yeah, that's working there. See, I got that to where now it just tapers in on that side. I'm going to come to this other side and do the same thing. And then we'll start doing the final shaping on it, and it'll be done. That thin spot right there I don't like, so I'm going to try to be careful how I hold this so that I don't fold it at that spot. Oh yeah, we're real close on this one now, so. Fix this little ear down here. All right, let me sharpen the tip of this flaker, and I'm going to do the other side, but I want it to be a little bit more precise in the way that I pull those flakes off. I need to have one of those beware of falling rock signs in my little napping area in the cavio here. All right, now you can see down this edge, see how that is kind of beveled or turned to this side? We're going to take downward flakes and try not to intrude too far into this flute channel. And try not to push on those corners. See how nice that super, super sharp. See, these are just little bitty all I'm doing is rolling this edge just slightly into that flute. All right, now we'll kind of shape the tip. All right, just about got that. We're going to bring the tip over just a little bit more. This is the part that, you know, is more tedious. You can't just blindly push flakes into these areas, or you're gonna end up removing a lot of your flute. And really, we're fairly thin in the center. We don't have need for that. So we're just trying to make an edge that would be sharpenable, or you would be able to resharpen it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Easily with just a little minimal amount of flaking. just about done, guys. Sorry, this is the part that takes for me the longest, because this is where you can really screw up all of the work that you just put into this piece. All right, we're just gonna take that tip in just a little bit more. Take a few of these little flakes. All right, we're gonna call that one, almost gonna call it done. Let me get this little, yeah, I can deal with that. So now I'm gonna grind the margins. This would have been the hafting area where that was going to be tied on to the shaft of the atlatl dart, or the handle, if it were a knife or something. Now, I don't believe these were knives. I think these were completely atlatl projectile points. The knives that they used were called them Folsom Ultra Thins, and they're just an extremely thin biface that was like a handheld knife that was probably used similar to like the ulu of the Alaskan cultures, the Inuit and Eskimo people that use like those ulu blades. Well, I think that the Folsom ultra thin bifaces were just basically a handheld blade that was used similar to what like an ulu would have been used for. So the reason that you would dull these edges is obviously so they weren't sharp and they wouldn't cut your hafting material. So, well, we did get lucky. That was really close to breaking that piece right there where that flute dove in. All right, guys. That was the first side right there, kind of flaked past some of the flute, and then this side it went almost to the tip up here. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I got a couple of spots I'll probably pick at it a little bit more. just to get the balance the way I like it. All right, we're going to call that one a done piece, guys. Base is ground. Margins are fixed, and we've got nice, thin, fulsome point. So I'm going to set that one aside. If you're interested in that one, I'll probably have it in my Etsy shop here, and should be in a couple of days anyway. So, oh, I didn't. Thank you, Roland. I appreciate it. I didn't intend to spend all morning finishing that out, but I'm kind of glad I did. I messed around with it last night and had kind of I was inspired, you know, and that's the way I like to work is when I'm wanting to work something like that. Typically, I'll do a little bit better on it because, you know, I'm inspired to do it. It's my artwork. So thank you guys for just hanging out and watching me do that. All right, let's see. We got 10 minutes left here. Let's see what I've got over here in the basket. You guys got anything you want to talk about or ask questions about or anything? We've got a few more minutes here. Looking for a piece of material we might be able to do a quick little blade out of, but what did I do with that one I was working earlier? Like I said, I do, Nick. I've actually got I've got a set that I'm getting ready to make. I don't know if I've shown you guys. This year was the first year that we've, in Arkansas, they've made it legal for us to use a hand-thrown spear. And I called and got clarification on that. And we're now, an atlatl is considered a legal means to take game here in Arkansas. So these are going to be hafted up on some dart points for my my atlatl set, and that's high up on the bucket list. I'm working on an area right now. My wife and I were getting ready to build a new house here right behind where our existing house stands, and I've got an apple orchard started down in the bottom, and it's going to pay dividends. It's going to be a really nice attraction area, and I'm pretty sure that I can seal the deal with an atlatl. I'll probably get something well within 20 yards. So yes, I do have them. And Nick, here's I don't know if you've ever been in here. This is one of my demonstration arrows. I used to shoot these, but I've used this one for demonstration for a lot of years when I would go and talk to people about building cane arrows. This is a piece of my heat-treated local stuff. Now this doesn't have any pine pitch. This is just hide glue and sinew in a hardwood foreshaft that I scraped down to fit inside this cane, and I reinforced the cane with sinew wrapping, and then I stained it black. I don't know, I think this may have been a walnut hull stain, but that sets up in there like that and gives you and then this one's a little worse for wear, but it's turkey feather fletching, and it's been sitting out here in the cavio so much it's a little bit, it needs to be straightened, but that's river cane river cane shaft, hardwood foreshaft with turkey feather fletching and a self knock. And this one has flown a bunch of times. I've shot that into hay bales. That's what I used to practice with stone tools. Do yourself a favor. Do not shoot stone tools into these foam modern targets. You will lose. It'll tear every one of those off as you're trying to remove your arrows. Unless you're using some kind of a bone tip that tapers into the shaft of the thing so it'll come back out. But if you're wanting to shoot your stone points for practice, shoot them at a hay bale. Maybe a hay bale with a piece of cardboard or two up in front of it, but don't ever shoot it into those foam targets. They will pull off every arrowhead off of your stuff. You guys, you got any more questions or comments? Or looks like the last of the coffee. I'm trying to limit myself. That was my 1 cup this morning, so probably gonna need more considering I didn't sleep very well last night. Well, I'll tell you what, we've got a few minutes here, guys. Got a few folks in here. Any of you guys that do any kind of special craft work, leather work, stone work? Absolutely, Rick. Yeah, I mean, we can talk about some of the hafting right now if you want to. I mean, it's pretty, we can do a whole show or, a whole live on it if you want, but typically what I use to start with as far as my hafting material, this is sinew. Now, depending on the usage, like this right here is a butcher knife that I made out of it's a Calf Creek. This is the same material. You can tell I really liked working it. That's some of the same material that I got from my friend. This is that Georgia Jasper. And I made like a Calf Creek style deep notch. This is pine pitch over natural cordage, vegetable fiber. Right on, Nick. Yeah, see guys, if you have special interests and hobbies and stuff, shout that out there. Let everybody else know, because there might be somebody out there looking for something that you do. You guys, and if you like flint knapping, Nomad Nick does a lot of cool videos and goes live occasionally, and does some really nice flint knapping. And if it's something that you like to watch, go check him out. But anyway, depending on the job of what you're, like this is going to be, I'm going to do a video on, we're going to make some jerky on some A-frame racks over a fire. I'm going to do that here upcoming. And we're going to use this to make the jerky strips with, to show you the efficiency of one of these stone tools. But if I'm hafting, like for a projectile point, I like the strength of the sinew. And when you get sinew, typically this is like off the back strap. If you're not familiar with what sinew is, a butcher would call it silver skin. And anytime like on a fillet, on your loin strips on the back, this runs over the top of those loin strips. This is that silvery film that's on there that's peeled away, and when it dries into these like a, I don't know, what it is, there's a lot of natural glue in this. The collagens and the natural glues is actually, when you cook this stuff down, you can get hide glue out of it. And the best way I can describe hide glue to some of you guys that may not know, if you know what gelatin, like unflavored gelatin, that's the collagens that cook out of, especially pork. Pork has a lot of it in there. Now, it doesn't make as good a glue. Some of the refined gelatin, you can actually use that as a substitute for hide glue, because that's really all it is refined hide glue. But the collagens in that jello or the gelatin mix, that's what holds these fibers together. So it's such a great glue to use with this, because it's basically made of the same stuff, and the bond that it creates when it dries is incredible. So you take this strip, and you rough it up and split it, work it around, and what you'll end up with, you'll start getting these individual fibers. And you can just pull those free, and then, depending on what your project is, and you want something really fine, like if you're sewing or something like that, you can break that down even more. And this one will actually break down. I like to have them broken down quite a ways because it makes a much nicer hafting job, or if you're doing, if you're backing a bow, doing a sinew backed bow. But you can see just how those just get down to like little threads. Now, once you got them in this position or this setup, now I've told people before, I got these sinews on a trade with a guy who was saving them, and we traded some stuff for them. So I don't know if I've harvested them and dried them and I know the process. I don't have any problem putting this in my mouth to moisten it with my saliva. But if I don't know where it came from, I'm not going to take any chances on how it was processed. So once this is wetted, this is just some water. Once you get it wet, all right, then it starts to become more pliable. You can see it's already more. You can see how it lays now. And what you do is you'll have several of these dried out or shredded out, and then have them in some type of a container with water in them. Just keep them soaking. And you can see like the wraps on this right here. You don't really even have to glue this stuff. The natural glues in it will actually hold it to itself once it dries. And I just start the wrap by wrapping over itself. And you just wrap several of them. Now watch this. This is what's so cool. You see this tag end right here. Take that tag in, and I can just smooth that down. I can just push it down on top of that like that. And when that dries, it will actually glue itself to that wrap because of, you know, just the chemical or the composition of it. And it looks, when it's wet, it actually is swollen up, but as it dries, it will shrink and it will compress in on that hafting. I mean, that's how you get a good strong haft. This one is actually, I've torqued on this knife quite a bit. It's getting close to its last legs, but you can see I've used it as a shaft spoke shave. I was using this when we were working on the edges of this. You can see I mean, it works just as good as any little block plane or anything like that for taking down the edges on that. So, but anyway, that's kind of, I'll do Rick, I'll do a whole video on hafting. Maybe next Wednesday night we can do, I'll see if I can get some arrow shafts together, and we'll, or some foreshafts together. I'll make some up and we'll do some hafting. Guys, we're getting ready to get off here. I'm going to do a drawing here in a few days for one of my subscribers. If you want to be eligible for that, all you got to do is be an active subscriber sometime in the month of March, and I'm going to draw from everybody and send that to somebody at my cost. So if you like the content, you want to help support the channel, hit the subscribe button and you'll be put in the mix for that. It's kind of a Comanche symbol. It's, you know, it's an effigy, I guess would be the way to put it. But and I'll give that away to one of my subscribers. So if you want to be eligible for that, hit the subscribe button, and I'll draw your name with everybody else's. Guys, I appreciate you hanging out today. We made a pretty decent foursome. Got some little white inclusions down towards the end. It's kind of cool. So thank you guys for hanging around and watching. I'll be back in here in the morning at 8 o'clock. So hope you guys can make it. If you can't, take care of yourselves, those around you. Until then, keep chipping.